So if you are a member of the Fearless Communicators team, if we can just get an elevated sparkleation from you, just to say hi. We have some Fearless Communicator members that are here, and the Fearless Communicators family. So yes, this means elevated sparkleation. So this is how we celebrate each other in this landscape with this gesture. And Fearless Communicators, we're a diverse, inclusive public speaking coaching business, and we work with thought leaders on what they say and how they say it. And we have a series of 3 acknowledgements that we do before we launch into any conversation. So the first thing that we'd love to do is acknowledge our elders. So I'm not going to call anybody out as an elder and say, wow, you look elderly. That's definitely not going to happen. But what we do is invite you to locate yourself in however eldership lands for you. It could be age, experience, however you define that. And what we do is, with respect and with honor, we request permission of our elders to begin. So elders of our community, are we ready to begin? Yes, we got some elevated sparkleation from our elders. Thank you so much, elders, for that. The second thing that we do is a land acknowledgement. And I feel it's important that our Australian family is here on this call, because it is something that I learned in our work in Australia. And before all of our events, what we do is acknowledge the Indigenous land that we are standing on. There is a website, if Deb or Ben, if you can put in the chat, it's nativeland.ca, an opportunity for you to locate yourself if this is your first time in a land acknowledgement. So standing here in the East Village of New York City, I want to acknowledge that I'm standing on Munsee Lenape land. And as we gather in this virtual circle, in continuation of circles of stories and language and tradition, want to acknowledge ancestors and elders that are past, present, and emerging. And also an opportunity in this moment as a person in the United States, as a human being who identifies as both queer and Latinx, to acknowledge the water that we're swimming in, that it is important to name that the world that we are living in is racist, misogynist, ableist, and LGBTQ plus phobic. And our commitment is to use our voices and our bodies and our stories and the dismantling of those institutions to ensure justice, equity, and freedom for all. So with all of that as a context, welcome to our Thought Leadership Forum. To begin, I want to center the 3 things that we are promising you. The first piece of our commitment is time and space for you. The second is to up-level your skills as a thought leader. And then the third thing is some intentional networking. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with some intentional networking. That's what's going to happen. So we are going to put you all in breakout rooms so you can connect and relate to each other. And the prompt for that is really simple. You're going to share your name. You're going to share where you are in the world. You're going to share where your people are from. And then you're going to share something that you just can't shut up about. Something that you just, like right now in this moment, you're like you're off talking about it nonstop. So I'm going to model it for a second. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break out into breakout rooms. You'll be in groups of 3. And again, you're going to have 10 minutes in that space. Okay, so my name is Eduardo Placer. My pronouns are he, him. I'm currently in the East Village of New York. My people are from Cuba, and they're also from Spain. And what I currently cannot shut up about is the TV show Ted Lasso, and how unexpected it is that I am like raving about this show, about this ugly American who is so beautifully American and so positive and can do, just completely and totally thaws the British Isles. So that is something that I'm absolutely raving about in this moment. Okay, so we're going to put the prompts. Thank you, Ben, for putting that in the chat. And what we're going to do now is we're going to activate the breakout rooms. So stand by as that is happening. And again, we're going to have 10 minutes in that room. Connect away. So welcome back. Seems like all the rooms are now closed. So I am now going to go into the share screen mode, which I just got a notice from Ben Peltison, who was like, check your share screen. I haven't been sharing my screen. I had a whole presentation that I'm actually not sharing because I was like, I would much rather be with all of you people than all of you looking at some slideshow. So it is so much better to see all of your faces. So what I'm going to do now is, before we lead into the meat of our event today, so we've been dancing in the appetizer, which is the first phase of this networking piece. I'm going to pass it on to Deborah, who's going to lead us in a bit of a grounding before we prepare for the meat of our conversation. So Deborah, take it away.
Hello, everybody. We're so pleased that you're here. You'll always be the people who turned up to the very first Thought Leadership Forum. Thank you for being with us. So if you hear some music in the background, it's just some people here in Mexico having a great time. And I'm going to bring that love into our Zoom room today. And we're going to do what we do at Fearless Communicators, which is we begin by grounded in body. So before you even begin speaking, before we even begin exploring thought leadership, we're just going to stop for a moment and connect to breath and connect to self. So find yourself in whatever is a comfortable position, and if possible, having everything uncrossed. And just for the next 2 minutes, you're just going to allow yourself to be in this moment and connected to breath and just tuning into self. And I'm just going to give you a couple of prompts to breathe through, to grounding. So connecting to that breath, and you send that breath all the way down to your belly, which in Fearless Communicators we call the Zorch, all the way deep down into that belly, and allow that to anchor you. Thought leadership. Thought leadership about our thoughts and our leadership. So first what we're going to do is we're going to direct that breath up into our brain space. Direct your breath up into your brain space where all those thoughts are buzzing around. And just acknowledge that you have arrived and you are a thought leader and your mind is amazing. And now you're going to draw that breath back down to that Zorch. You also have the power of your gut, the power of your belly, the power of your Zorch, that deep knowing. Also a superpower of the thought leader. So just breathe in there and breathe into, what do I know? What do I know for sure in my gut? I have an amazing mind. I'm a leader in the thoughts that I have been thinking about for a long time, and I know in my gut why this is important. And now, thought leaders, breathe into your heart space. For Fearless Communicators, we believe that what comes from the heart will touch the heart. And we all have a reason that we do the work that we do. And a lot of those reasons sit in our heart. Why do we believe that our thought leadership is important? Why do we believe that we want to share it? How does it feel? And now, my fearless thought leaders, next couple of breaths, take the biggest, deepest breath you've taken all day, and you're going to breathe into your amazing mind. You're going to breathe into your knowing gut, and you're going to breathe into your free, open, and allowing heart, and you are going to light up. Get ready. Deep breath in, lighting up all of your power centers of your thought leadership. As we dive in today, led by Mr. Fearless himself, as we dive into thought leadership. What's that? Welcome.
Thank you so much, Deborah. An opportunity to elevate, sparkulate. And I love that we had this little thumpity underneath, which felt a little Ibiza. It felt Cancun, 1995, you know, as we were deepening our breath, connecting to our bodies and our hearts. So thank you so much for always leading us so beautifully and an opportunity to connect to our bodies, into our breaths, our hearts, and into our minds. So thank you so much, Deborah. Elevated sparkleation to you. So what we're going to be doing now is moving, transitioning into the meat of our program. And the meat is going to be divided into two parts. There's going to be two conversations that we're having on the special tool that we're going to be exploring today in your thought leadership toolkit. And then there are going to be some breakout rooms. We're going to be having some conversations with people, again, getting to know each other, sharing, connecting, and being in the connection of our stories and what we have to say about what we love and what we do. And to begin with, there is this question as we were framing together this idea of the thought leadership forum, for us to imagine, what does thought leadership actually mean, or what does it mean to be a thought leader? So I'm going to invite you in the chat, perhaps for some musings, to take a little moment. What are tops of minds when you think thought leader? What is it that you think of? Okay, so we're going to have an opportunity to see what percolates in people's minds in the chat. A knowledgeable expert. Thank you for that. An expert in their field, subject matter expert. Speaking truth, experience, point of view, shared experience and knowledge, experience, sharing thoughts and ideas. Someone who can give insightful advice, innovation, someone engaged in the conversation. Inability to make the complex seem manageable and doable. A provocateur. Ooh, I love that word. I love that word. Playful intellectualism. Yes, I love that. Engaging, the ability to make connections that are unique. Someone who shares his or her story to enlighten others. Seeing the world from a global perspective, communicating around issues that provide openings for others to see their worlds differently. Yes, I'm going to say yes to all of it. And I think one of the things that we know in Fearless Communicators is, like, there's no law or absolute definition around it. And I think that we are ourselves in the question and in the emergence of what is a thought leader and what is a thought leader now? And who are we in the defining and reimagining what that looks like and who speaks that? And for me, as I kind of play of this idea of thought leader, I think of a human being, so a person who is grounded in body, heart, mind, and spirit, communicating fearlessly in service of a better world. So that is where I am anchoring myself in this conversation around thought leadership, and a yes and to all of the offerings that you have brought into this conversation. And in thinking about, yes, that is the Roman Forum in the pic, Joanna. Yes, look at you with your geography. So the question then is, as we start locating ourselves in this idea of thought leadership, I'm going to begin with an assumption, which is that you are all thought leaders. Okay, so we can always get an elevated sparkleation in that self-acceptance that we're thought leaders. So we're going to say yes. And there may be that, like, inner imposter, that inner voice that's like, no, am I? I don't know. We're just going to proceed with the assumption that who we are is a thought leader. So we're just going to invite the yes to that conversation. And what we want to do is expand upon what I believe to be the single greatest tool in your toolbox as a thought leader. And that's what we're going to be exploring and expanding on today. And of course, the way that we're going to begin with, as we often do in Fearless Communicators, is with a story. And now the most dramatic pause in the history of American theater. So here we are. It is a Friday morning around 9 p.m. It's a summer day, and I'm an acting company member at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is a premier repertory acting company in the US. We have 11 plays and rotating rep, a company of actors that are 100 talented, brilliant, beautiful creators and collaborators. And I get a phone call. And the phone call is from the producer of the theater festival. And she says, Eduardo, I'm just going to jump to it. The play, Into the Woods, the lead, Javi, is not well and is unable to go on in the role tonight for a sold out audience. And the understudy is not able to go on and replace him. Would you be willing to step in for the role tonight? So the baker in Into the Woods is the lead role in the musical. It's also my dream role, and a role that I've never rehearsed, never performed. And all I did was sing along to it when I was a sophomore in high school. That's it. And because it was my dream role, I took a deep breath and I said, yes. After saying yes, the first thing that I did was I absolved myself of perfection. I said, there's no way this is going to be perfect. I'm just going to say yes, and whatever happens, I'm going to ride the adventure of that. An hour later, I met with a musical director and with a piano, sang through the score once, and then for 4 hours in a rehearsal hall, worked with the pianist, the stage manager, and the dance captain on the blocking of the show in a rehearsal room, because we couldn't actually rehearse it on the stage because it's 100 degrees and the theater is outside. We also don't rehearse the show in the order because the actors are also doing other shows. So as they're doing other shows, they're running into the rehearsal hall so that I can get one pass of doing the play. And at 7:30 p.m., the lights come on, and I walk on that stage, and I step into my dream role. And the reason why I was able to do that was because of a magical word, and that word is trust. I had a beautiful conversation with, as you know, the brand of our company is Fearless Communicators. And I was sharing about fearless and what it means to be fearless. And this brilliant acupuncturist said to me, you know, I actually do believe that you can get rid of fear. And I was like, how? It's part of our, you know, composite emotion. It's part of fundamentally who we are. And she said, the antidote to fear is trust. And it took my breath away. And in that moment, when I walked on that stage, one, I trusted myself. I had 15 years of experience as a professional actor. I knew the body, I knew the voice. I knew that I could walk on that stage and deliver what was expected for me in that moment. The second thing is, not only did I trust myself, I also trusted my company of actors. I knew I was held by my ensemble. The people on that stage were rooting for me, and they were championing me, and they were on my team. And the third thing is that I trusted the audience. That when you step into something that's that extreme, you're walking on stage with a script with less than 12 hours of preparation to deliver this role with a live orchestra in a role that you've never rehearsed before, the audience is rooting for you and they're on your side. So I surrendered and trusted that the audience was with me and they were on my side. And when that thing is happening, there's trust in self, trust in your community and team, and trust in the audience. What you can then trust is that the magic is going to happen. The magic is there. In Spanish, it's called the duende. In flamenco, when the fairies kind of take over. And it's almost also like the Matrix, where everything slows down and you're just so present to moment by moment by moment. And when you're doing that tightrope of trust, in that gift of presence, you feel unbelievably alive. And trust of self, I think, is one of the major tools that we have as thought leaders. And there are moments that we don't trust ourselves. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to remove the spotlight and we're coming back into the group. We're going to do a little breakout session conversation. And Mark Bedard, is it Mark Bedard? Are you, and you have dear Mo with you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mark Bedard, one of our fearless trainers, and his daughter Mo.
Hello.
Hi, Mo.
You want to say hi? Hi. We just woke up from a nap and we just had a little treat.
Yes.
Chocolate chips. Yes, you don't have to tell everyone I gave you chocolate chips.
I put on the table.
You did. Okay, so everyone, Eduardo's throwing it to me because, thank you, Andrea. Eduardo's throwing it to me because I'm going to explain the next breakout room that we're going to be in for 10 minutes. So we're all going to break up into groups, and we're going to invite you in this breakout room to share your own nightmare scenario. Hold on, Mo. Wait 1 minute. To share your own nightmare scenario. Now, it does not have to be as extreme as Eduardo's, right? Eduardo's nightmare is a nightmare that most actors like myself would be like, absolutely not, right? So it doesn't have to be as big as Eduardo's. It could be a small thing. It could be something that happened to you in school when you had to give a report and maybe your partner didn't show up, or at work where you were asked to speak off the cuff. It can be big or small. The second thing is it doesn't have to be a success story. It doesn't have to be something that you said yes to. It could be something where you were like, I don't feel like I can step in and do that. So whether it's big or small, or you said yes or no, we want to invite you to share a nightmare scenario and then discuss why or why didn't you step in or not. And invite you to discuss that. You'll be in groups of 3, I believe, so you'll have about 3 minutes to share, and then we'll come back into the main room. Did I miss anything, Eduardo? I have a kid in my arm.
You got it. So they're going to be groups of 3 to 4 in the rooms, and we're going to go. Happy, I just saw your blanket. Oh my God, I coveted your blanket, Happy.
Experience, even though it came with some stress.
Hello, we are back. So Alex did a beautiful job of setting Irbania up perhaps for a little bit of a share.
Thank you, Alex.
Just to hear, like, perhaps, maybe a couple of you just share quickly the story that emerged for you in the conversation. So Irbania, why don't you take it away? Just share a little bit about your name, where you are in the world, a little bit where your people come from, and then tell us what the story was.
Sure. So Urbania from the Dominican Republic, and I'm a blend of cultures, of course, just by being Dominican. I'm in New York City, Upper West Side. I'm a graduate of Circle 13, Fearless Talk. And hi, Melissa. And what else? I guess that's pretty much it for my intro. So I'll go into yes, Meg, into my story. So I was trying to decide what I was going to talk about, like what experience do I have that I can share similar or something in that line that Eduardo's story was. And then I thought of one time, I'm a chef, and it's a change of career for me. And early on in my career, I do a lot of private chefing and personal chefing. So it's more away from restaurants and more of a personal private events. So I was recommended by a very well-known chef and someone who's very respected to do this dinner for high-end clients in Brooklyn. And I jumped in right away. I tend to say yes, and then I'll figure things out. So I was asked if I was available and all this kinds of stuff. And I said, yes, I'm available. And of course, I do this all the time, but trust me, that was probably my first, I think it was my first private event. So I speak with a chef and with a client, and we're like deciding on the menu. And this client wants steak, very prime steak, grilled. And I definitely did not have the experience of that. Like I did it in school, but I don't really grill in New York City. I'm in an apartment, and I mean, maybe once in the summer and not even. So I'm definitely saying, oh yes, totally, I can do that. I didn't even know what type of grill he had, and they were talking about how great this grill was and all that kinds of stuff. So I'm like, I say yes. I was definitely inside knowing that I did not have the experience, but I just needed to pull that out. Plus I wanted to kind of create the muscles for that. That's what I would call it. Like you say yes, you jump in and then you become stronger. So I did shop some of those things for myself to like practice a little bit. And then I called one of my uncles who has a grill in his house and I practiced, but it definitely was not enough. So I showed up for the dinner and I was asked to bring an assistant with me. So I asked a couple of colleagues, and the person that I brought in happened to be magically someone who works in the grill, in the meats, in a high-end restaurant. So I had him be the one in charge of the steak in a very gentle way, so the client wouldn't tell that the chef wasn't, really the one doing it. But at the end of the day, it was an amazing dinner. They have booked me for other events. I feel so much more confident to do private events now and take on things that I might not have done in the past. Yeah, and now I learn also to like choose my assistants very wisely. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I love that. So the strategy in building trust is always having a great assistant as a sidekick who can come in that moment. So Ibania, thank you so much for sharing your story, and just an opportunity perhaps in the chat or Elevated Sparkleation, people who can acknowledge that moment where they were given an opportunity and they didn't know how the hell they were going to do it, but said yes anyway, like a little Elevated Sparkleation to the people who said that. And I think there's this beautiful opportunity to just be curious and in the learning, right? So I love that it's like sometimes we get the critic shows up and it's like stops us from saying that, and the opportunity to step into the yes, asking for support, asking for help, right? And then the magic of that saying yes created the assistant who was also able to assist you, and that was fortuitous. So thank you so much for your story, Ibania, and thank you for sharing your voice with all of us. So starting with this conversation about trust in self and how we build the trust in self, as a speaker and as a thought leader, specifically in Fearless Communicators, we talk about audience-focused speaking. So not speaker-focused speaking, but audience-focused speaking. So how are we centering the audience as the recipients of what it is that we're speaking about? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the toolkit that we have to build trust with our audience, right? How can we build trust with the people who we are committed to making a difference with in our speaking, okay? And to do that, and to get and expand our little toolkit of trust, what we're going to do is we are going to go back all the way to Aristotle, pronouns he, him, and we are going to look at the classic rhetorical appeals, right? And this is how we build trust in relationship with our audience. And there are 5 pillars to these rhetorical appeals. There is ethos, there is logos, there is pathos, there is Kairos, and then there is Tilos. And it sounds a little bit like and the 6th one is D'Artagnan. It sounds a little bit like the 3 Musketeers, but we're just going to celebrate that that's what it is. And we're just going to unpack these a little bit as we start identifying which is the tool, which of these is a strong muscle for me, and which is one that I can better and improve upon as I show up in speaking with my ideal audience. So when we speak about ethos, we speak of, it stands for Greek for nature and or disposition, but it's also how someone centers their own authority, their character, their experience, and their pedigree, right? So I'm curious, if you're hearing somebody speak, right, in building that space of trust, what are opportunities where you feel like this can go south really fast, that you completely and totally lose trust with a speaker? And I invite you to write that in the chat. So if you're watching somebody speaking and this authority, character, experience, pedigree is present, where does it start to go south where you break the trust, where the trust is broken? I'm curious in the chat. I'm trying to pull it up here and it's not appearing to read. Ben, is it possible for you to read the chat for me?
I sure can, yes. Angry or aggressive towards a marginalized community, misreading the audience. bragging about accomplishments, me-focused, when they're being hypocrites, talking at the audience instead of to and with, disrespectful statements, if the person comes off as a know-it-all, talking down to the audience, not grounded, scattered across the page, when the speaker's not being authentic.
Beautiful. And what would, and an opportunity to reflect on, you know, in Fearless Communicators, we say thrilling and less thrilling is kind of how we market and think about it. So instead of good and bad and right and wrong. So what would be the thrilling side of somebody who leads with this ethos, authority, character, experience, pedigree? How does that land in the speaking that would create a space of connection and trust? And I'm curious in the chat. So feel free to type in the chat. Where do you see that effectively done?
Being vulnerable. Person is open and acknowledges the expertise of the audience, personal. They're supportive, engaging, and kind. They've got a sense of humor. They're vulnerable. When somebody conveys an idea to me that I wouldn't have in my own in 1,000 years, they're genuine and authentic. They make eye contact. They share failures. They engage the audience in discussion. They're doing personal storytelling.
I'm going to double click on that. So we're going to continue the thriving of the chat and a way to engage and be in relationships with that. But I love that, you know, building credibility by sharing failure seems unexpected and beautiful, like actually a great strategy, right? And I think there are ways that sometimes when we speak about experience and pedigree, we like start naming our diplomas and all of our, you know, our accolades and our tutelages and our medals and our prizes and awards, thinking that centering that is what's going to build the trust. And I think sometimes we can be a little disruptive about it and play with how we do that. So we have a client in our second Fearless Force program named Casey Byrne. And this woman has an undergraduate degree from Yale and a master's from MIT and has like 20, 30 years of experience in tech as a marketing executive. And the talk that we worked on for her was called her Mommy MBA. So what she said is, I have trained and I have worked at the best institutions. I have the best of degrees, but the best training that I have for being in business is being a mother. And it doesn't appear on my LinkedIn profile, right? I know how to put a CEO in timeout. I know how to like have him separated so that when they're throwing the temper tantrum, everyone else can feel safe, right? So it's kind of playing with experience in a different way that doesn't feel so prescriptive, right? And it is important to set that sense of authority, right? So you do want to center yourself as an expert, but you don't want it to all be about you, because then that breaks the trust. Another tool is logos, which is the Greek word for word, or for reason, right? So that's an appeal in our speaking to logic and reason. So curious what the less thrilling of that would be. So in the chat, where does it start going south, right? If someone is speaking, where do you start breaking the trust if it in the logic and reasoning space? So Ben, what is the chat communicating?
Acronyms, unemotional or distant.
Yes,
jargon.
jargon.
Charts, all theory, no practice, telling falsehoods, when very cerebral, without heart or passion or emotion, disconnected, verbose, using large words, not open to other ideas or thoughts.
Yes, and then let's start transitioning into what are the positives, the thrilling. What are the moments where you see people using logic and reason in a thrilling way that actually creates that sense of connection and trust?
Speak facts that make it obvious, scientific, fact-based evidence in the world.
So not alternative facts. You're talking about actually real facts. Real facts are useful.
Examples that are relatable. That's good. When they're seemingly unrelated to unrelated threads together. Real life examples, clever juxtapositions, breaking down complex topics into digestible material.
Beautiful.
Shares themes or topics that are of great interest.
So this is a place to start looking at in our speaking that sometimes we can rely a little too heavily on facts and figures and statistics, right? And then it's super dry. And we do need facts, statistics, and figures to also ground us and give us some architecture and some holding to create that sense of trust with our audience. You know, we have another client named Mohammed Madaris who was a TED fellow and gave a TED talk. And his whole TED Talk was on reimagining the agricultural food system. And what he said was, US farmers today cannot afford the food that they produce, which took my breath away. And then he said that the average farmer makes 15 cents on the dollar that you spend at the grocery store. However, if you go to a farmer's market, the farmer makes 90 cents. So the greatest source of justice in this agricultural landscape is shopping at your farmer's market. So that was his whole thing, but like anchoring it specifically and making it that clear and visual, right? And he had these graphs that had a dollar bill with 15 cents and a dollar bill with a 90 cents, anchored it for the audience to create that sense of connection to this very complicated conversation. We're going to move to Pathos. So we're moving around, ladies and gentlemen. We're exercising. We're doing some cardio through our little columns of Aristotle and our pillars here. And the next one is Pathos, which is Greek for suffering. And it's an appeal to emotion. Now, I think it's really interesting that pathos means suffering, and that's what they talk about. They translate that as to emotion. So like all emotion is suffering, which I think has its own little bias, perhaps, in that assessment. And it reminds me, my father had an uncle. He was the youngest of 7, and he always cried. So he was called in Cuba the unhappy one, el infeliz, because the fact that he was just showing emotions made him unhappy. So I just want to acknowledge the bias about suffering and emotions. We're going to name that, and that there are people who center and appeal to an emotional response and emotion, right? So what does the less thrilling side of that look like? An opportunity in the chat, Ben.
Sorry, we are not seeing anything yet. Manipulation.
Yes.
Over-relying on anecdotes, stone-faced, victim blaming of others, self-deprecation. Yeah.
And then what would the positive side of it look like? So the thrilling. So if it can veer on when people are speaking emotionally, there's this like kind of manipulation. It's like therapy. It's like a little too much, like you feel unsafe because like, where are they going with that? On the other hand,
showing their humanity, creating relatability and shared understanding, tugging on the heartstrings.
Yeah. And I think that this is a fine line in our speaking. I think this is one of the tightropes in building trust with an audience, right? Because an easily tip, and I think oftentimes speakers and thought leaders are like afraid sometimes of leaning into the vulnerability because it may feel like oversharing, or it feels dangerous, or feels weird, or is it too much? And yet, committing and connecting to this emotional response actually creates a bond with people if it's sincere and I believe in service of the audience, right? In one of our recent Your Story Now programs, Eddie Plata, who is the executive director of a nonprofit that does work with LGBTQ athletes around fitness and health, for the first time in his life, shared and centered the story about he had been diagnosed as obese at 10 years old and came out of the closet. And this whole shame around his relationship to his body. And that's why he now is in service of LGBTQ athletes and celebrating the diversity and the beauty of their body, however it shows up, and advocate for their own health, right? So it is in leaning into the truth and standing in the truth, however scary it is, that is of service, that I think actually makes a difference and creates that trust, as opposed to going the other side where sometimes it can be oversharing, manipulative, and it's the tightrope dance in that landscape. The fourth is Kairos, which is Greek for opportunity, which is an appeal to time or timeliness and relevance. And I think a lot in this landscape, I'm actually just going to call out someone who did this beautifully, and she's on the call right now, which is Valerie Lyons. Hi, Valerie Lyons. A little shout out to you in using Kairos as a tool, expectedly or unexpectedly. Yes. So Valerie, in one of our recent programs, she's a power networker. So she speaks about networking, and she speaks about the power of networking and how we can empower ourselves in networking. And when she was doing the program, it was in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. And what emerged in conversation was networking as what, Valerie?
As a social justice call to action.
And what happened?
I got gigs.
So there were, yeah. So there's something.
I got gigs because it was a time when people were, asking for training or education around how we can use our spheres of influence to give opportunities to brown and Black people.
So beautiful. So in that moment, right, there's like our expertise and what we think about, and then there's how do we frame that in the moment, right? So I think sometimes where this can go south about opportunity is also like time, now's the time. It's like a bad sales call. Do you know what I mean? When you're just like, whoa, pressure, like that can kind of feel a little off, right? And then there's also the speaking to the moment, right? How we can speak and communicate to the space of the moment that actually brings that sense of truth and relevance to what it is that we're saying. The last one that we have is Tilos, which is Greek for end. And there are two parts of this. One is an appeal to goal or purpose, right? And I think part of that is like, as an audience, that the speaker has a goal to their speaking, right? So you know why they're up there. You know why the speaker is speaking, right? And I can imagine that there are times when you're watching somebody speak where you're like, I have no idea where they're going with that. There's like no pathway, right? So that also breaks that space of trust, right? And I think there's also the experience of watching somebody speak who's really connected to purpose, their why, right? That when someone is deeply connected to that purpose and that why as like a lighthouse, right? We're able to then connect and drive and trust them because they're taking us on that journey, right? And we had this woman in another one of our programs, Steffi Cruz, who in the Fearless Force program, her whole talk was about the moment she realized she was a brown girl with options. And the reason why she was speaking was because her 11-year-old daughter was in the audience. And we were all aware that that was happening. So we just got that the truth, and she had one of the shortest talks we've ever done. It was 7 minutes. It was like in and out. It was like fast and furious. And it was like so to the point. So like, this is why I'm speaking. This is why it matters. And the reason why it matters is because she's right there. That the presence and the relevance of that just like deepened it and just had us all in the audience, like completely and totally championing and rooting for her. So what we have here are these 5 pillars, these 5 tools that we have to build trust with our audience. So we have experience, we have reason, we have emotion, we have time, and we have purpose. I'm going to say them again. We have experience, we have reason, we have emotion, we have time, and we have purpose. So now, which one are you? Which of the 5 is the way that you naturally lead? Which is the way that you lead? It's like Capricorn, Libra, Aries. You may be cuspy. We'll invite some cuspiness. Why not? Right? And Ben, I'm going to pass it to you with the instruction for the next breakout conversation.
Awesome. So in our final breakout conversation tonight, what we're going to be trying to figure out for you in your thought leadership, when you show up to speak in whatever way that you show up to speak, it might be great as just a thing to know about yourself. What is your strong suit of those 5 things in the ways that you show up to speak? And what do you need help with? What is your Achilles heel? And we're going to talk about that. Thank you for all of you putting this stuff in the chat. We're going to talk about that and the ways that that shows up for you in your speaking in our next breakout room. All right.
And
so
7 minutes. We're going to do 7 minutes in the breakout room, an opportunity for you to connect. And ready, go. Hi, Coach Molly.
Hi.
I know you, but it's great to see you, Coach Molly. I'm loving the colors. Yes. Beautiful. Hi, Laura Klein Taylor. Now everybody comes in. Everybody comes in. We're storming in. Yes, the rain. Everybody's coming in. So yes, Angelica, I saw your note a little late. So I hope you ended up getting the words. So just an opportunity, oops, timer, always scary when it goes off. Curious what percolated and what emerged for people in the breakout room. So an opportunity to raise your hand in the function and just share what emerged. What did you discover about yourself? What did you discover about other people? Just curious what emerged in the different chats.
Valerie's got her hand up.
Valerie, yes.
Shocker. Shocker, the Valerie has a
Oh my God, does Valerie have something to say? I wonder if Valerie has something to say. By all means.
Well, everyone in my group, we all talked about emotion, leading with emotion. And what I really got from that, because that is my strong suit, that I want to raise my game in like the statistics and the reason, right? And I do think I do speak with purpose, but that emotion, it's a little played. I want to see if I can balance that out with some of the other particularly the data and the statistics and the research.
I love that. And Valerie, Gabrielle just wrote harness emotion with purpose and connection, which I love the harnessing verb. I love that. Beautiful. Anyone else? And I can't see all the screens. So who else would like to share what emerged for them in any new discoveries? Yes, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just saying in ours that it made me really think about how do I go out there and speak versus just I do it and I'm not really sure how I do it, but I do it and it seems to be effective. And I think it gave sort of those pillars of sort of checkpoints that I can sort of gauge when I'm creating something. Like for me, I realized that I initially thought, okay, I lead with emotion, but I think in our group, what I realized is I lead with purpose. And I touch people's emotions through my stories or my vulnerability, but then it's always about bringing it full circle. But like what Valerie was saying is sometimes depending on who I'm speaking to, if it's more of a qualitative talk, it's less heavy on facts, right? And others are much more heavy on facts if it's a different audience. But this just sort of, I love the visuals and that you gave us because it creates touchstones from which I can go, hey, let me just check in that I'm covering all the bases.
Beautiful. And I love that you said that, Tony, because I think that's the practice. It's not one is right, but how can we actually elevate all five to create a really strong structure that can support how I show up to be of greater service to build that trust to my audience. So I love that you realize that, Tony. So we'll do Ariel, and I see Chris Bell as well. So Ariel.
Sure. So I noticed that we all have different areas that we emphasize and considered our strong suits, and it drove home to me the idea of having a collaborator or an editor, someone who has different strengths than you do. Someone says, hey, you're just emphasizing this area way too much. How about, you're being too reasonable. How about some emotion, or how about making it timely? So I think that we can really benefit from others critiquing us in the process, in the creative process.
Ariel, I want to say yes and to that, because that's something that we practice, which is we always share out loud. Right? So sometimes in our preparations, like we kind of do it in a vacuum and then we try it first with an audience, right? And I think the opportunity to be in the speaking and getting, and I noticed that you said the word critique, and it's something that I named because what we're oftentimes at war with is our inner critic, right? And I think there's something about feedback, like the creating the space for feedback, which is nourishing, right? That we invite the feedback and to give someone, these are the 5 things that I'm looking for. Am I connecting to emotion? Does it feel relevant? Am I connecting to logic and reasoning? Am I setting myself as an authority, right? That if you have these things, these guideposts for people to listen, then they're able to give you feedback that's actually useful in what you're delivering. So thank you for that, Ariel. Chris, we're gonna take it from you. What do you have to offer, Chris?
In our group, one of the things we talked about, I said, as a thought leader, I tend to my desire is that I want to come with reason and logic, and I want to come through with that. And then the minute I open my mouth, that shit goes right out the door. And we talked about my imposter syndrome is probably what leads me with purpose, because you can't question my purpose. That's the one place I'm Teflon, and it's, you know, come for me. You want to come for my purpose? You're not going to win, but good for you. And, you know, past that, obviously, the way I'm doing it is with emotion. But those would never be the two I would say, yeah, that's my highest best, and that's what I want to do. No, I want to be reason and logic and strong. And no, strong, yes. Emotion, yes. Purpose and experience. So depending on what's kind of driving and where I come from, where I feel comfortable, that's, you know, nature versus nurture, but nature keeps winning.
Yes, I love that. And Chris, like, I just want to name, because you just framed it so beautifully, you know, in our work, you know, I want to name that, that there are oftentimes people where the imposter is struck because there's a feeling, specifically by people who are not male identifying, right? To play up the logic and the reasoning in order to gain credibility, right? And a surrendering from the emotion. Like, I can't show the emotion, I can't be the emotion, but I gotta emphasize the logic and the reasoning for fear of, you know, what a boss or a manager or an audience would expect, right? So it's just, I felt like you named that, like my mind says I wanna be more of this, but actually what emanates from my body is more something else. So just interesting to note that dichotomy. So thank you. And Alex, we'll finish up with you with the feedback and an opportunity in the chat for people to share perhaps their big takeaway about their own exploration of this toolkit, right? Trust of self and also trust in audience, building trust in audience. Alex, what do you have to share?
I thought Chris's comments really resonated with me because, kind of in reverse, I spent 15 years being trained on all arguments being based on reason, and everything has to be logic, and that's it. And so for me, I feel like most people make decisions based on emotion. And so kind of straddling those two things, you can rely on reason, but if you can't find a way to weave the emotion into it, I think you're not always going to get the results that you want.
Beautiful. Oh my God, Alex, thank you. So can I call you Alex or Alexandra? What is the?
Alex is perfect. Thanks.
Alex, elevated sparkleation for that. And I think that that's a beautiful tightrope that most people are dancing, right? I think logic, emotion, I think oftentimes feels like where we dance, right? And so much of the training, you know, at school and stuff is like, make the argument, make the argument, make the argument, but without any emotional response, then nothing happens, right? Like we tend to rely on emotion, feeling, gut. And it's actually a dance of the two that I think creates, and actually the five, which solidifies that. So creates that ground. So did you want to say something, Alex? I saw you note for the, no? Okay. So an opportunity, I'm just curious in the chat, if people just want to name, if they were to choose one, what would it be? 1, 2, 3, go. Emotion, purpose, experience, purpose, emotion, experience, purpose, emotion, time, emotion, purpose, emotion, purpose, lots of purpose, time. Beautiful. And the invitation is, as you continue to step in the world, sharing about who you are and what you have to offer as a thought leader, because again, you're all thought leaders, elevated sparkleish on your thought leadership, to think about these 5 pillars and how you are tugging on these to continue to ensure that you're building that space and sense of trust with your audience. So friends, we are wrapping up on the completion of our first Thought Leadership Forum. Yes! I'm gonna elevate sparkleate myself for this first launch of this Thought Leadership Forum. So I'm gonna say yes to that. And I just have a couple things to share with you as we wrap up and then we lead to our little grand finale. The first is the next Thought Leadership Forum. So this is going to be happening monthly. It's the first Thursday of every month. It's at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. We'll send a link. So it's an opportunity for you to, again, center yourself, center your thought leadership, develop and up-level your own skill set. And then also network. We are greater in numbers, right? So the opportunity to create collaborators, co-creators, let this be the space that we can come collectively as thought leaders to celebrate and empower and broaden and expand our voice and how we show up of service. So that's the space, and that's this invitation for you. And think about who else in your network you would want to come here and be in this conversation. They are also welcome and have a seat in our forum. The other thing is we have a showcase of our upcoming Your Story Now program. So we have several people, Elevated Sparkle Age, who are on this call, who are in that upcoming program. Yes. And that's Wednesday evening. They're sharing these things this thing we invented called the signature stitch, which is your story plus your pitch. It's 3 to 5 minutes. And there are 2 showcases at 5:30 p.m. and then 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll put the link in the chat if that's something. Again, the registration is free. And again, diverse speakers sharing their truth in service. And then the last is if you feel inspired and you're like, ooh, these fearless communicators, love it, love them, want to know more. Here's a link with a bit.ly/fearless, yes, to hop on a call with someone on our team to learn more. We actually are really curious about you and your story and how we can show up in service of you and your voice and your thought leadership. So the reminder that we always have as we're navigating, and our brains start getting activated when we start thinking about, content and delivery and practical tools and all that other stuff, is the opportunity to make a note of all of it, let go of it, and just remember to be an effing person at the end of the day, right? That's what we want. We want real live human beings up on stage, and that's the most important thing. And we do that always by being grounded in body, present in mind, leading from the heart, and speaking into the spirit of our shared humanity. So that completes our first thought leadership forum for the first, and we have a coda. So we're not fully officially done, but we're kind of done. So we are officially at 6:30. So the program is officially over at 6:30. I want to honor the integrity of that. And there is a way that we wrap up and close the container in all of our programs that I'm going to invite you to stay in for. Right? So if you are able to, if you need to go, thank you so much. We will be in communication with you. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are able to stay, right, then we're just going to allow the things to settle in. And what we are going to do is a final acknowledgement. And the way that this looks is we are going to raise a hand, okay? And then what we're going to do is one by one, we're going to pass to the people that we see. And what you're going to say is something along the lines of, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and I am so grateful that you are here. And then you're going to pass it to somebody else. And then we're going to go from person to person to person. And then as you finish, you lower the hand so we can choose somebody else to go to. Okay. So again, the invitation is to raise your hand, and I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say Marissa Nalavanko. Honey.
Hi. Oh, it's so good to see your face.
I feel you, and I am so grateful that you were here.
Thank you. Coach Molly, I see you. I feel you. I love that shirt, and I'm so grateful that you're here.
Ben, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and I am grateful you are here and grateful you invited me to come.
Admira, I see you, I feel you. I'm so happy to see you here. Thanks for joining the party. Yes.
Thank you, Ben. Christine.
What is that to me?
Oh. Christine,
I see you. I feel you. I'm happy to see you here.
Thanks, Amira. And Deborah, hi, I see you. It's great to be here with you. And I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Christine. Beautiful to see you. Joanna Lovering, out and about in New York City. I see you all rugged up there. I'm so appreciative that you were with us today. I see you. I love you. Go well.
Thank you, Deborah. Yes, the dog needed to be walked immediately. Helene, I see you, I hear you, see me, feel me, touch me. All right, go Helene.
That was the best. I'm on my phone, so I'm having a hard time seeing people. So I'm gonna like scroll. Okay, all right. I see Valerie Lyons. I see you. I feel you. I hear you. I'm so grateful that you have flowers behind you and turquoise emanating from you, and grateful that you are here.
Thank you. Let me see, who do I see? Oh, Melissa. That's my phone. Melissa Manning. I see you. I feel you. I love you. And I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you, Val. I love you too. Irvania, it's so good to see you. I hear you, I feel you, I see you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And I'm happy I got to see you again.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Mark, I see you, I feel you, and I'm so grateful that you are here.
Yeah. Tony Sargent, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm so grateful you are here.
Thank you, Mark. Jerry, I see you, I feel you. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm glad I got to do a little bit of a one-on-one with you in the grape room.
Thank you, Tony. Daniel, I see you driving. I feel and hope you're safe. I'm really glad that you are joining us and are here, and hopefully next time you can be more relaxed when you're with us. But thank you for being part of our group. I look forward to meeting you more.
Yeah, you're all on.
Daniel, you're muted.
Marissa, I see you, I feel you. I'm so grateful that you're here. And Eduardo, this was really excellent. Well done. Thank you for inviting me.
And Daniel, I think Marissa went already. So you're gonna have to choose somebody else. I'm just gonna choose it because you're driving. Okay.
Choose it for me, yes, please.
Mira Meggs, Lathrop, it's so great to see you, sweetheart. It's you, it's your turn.
Okay. So someone's going to say it to me, though?
I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I love all the color and all the light, honey, always beaming from you. And I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you. Let's see. Rebecca, I see you, I feel you. I'm so thankful that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Let's see. Cappy. I see you and I hear you, and I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
Lucky last, I think.
It's you, Johanna. Yes.
I get to call it in.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway,
Cappy,
sorry, Cappy, I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay. So I do it for Johanna, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think I'm last, Cappy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Johanna, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, and I'm so grateful that you're here.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So I get to feel everybody. I'm feeling you all, and I'm loving you all. And it's been great to be here. I look forward to many more. Big love to everybody. Mwah.
Thank you so much for being with us. We will see you in March, if not sooner. Till next time, remember to fear less, speak free, and love more. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you
Ciao.
so much.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.